Yes, here we are, Shelter FootyCast, live from BackChat Studios. We're on our own feed. You found us. Well done. Congratulations. Join us on socials, Shelter FootyCast, and you can send us an email, footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au. G'day, Skater. How are you?
Hello, Scully. Yeah, big derby fallout from yesterday, and some of the big names in town. In fact, going to a luncheon today where Gillon McLaughlin's going to be speaking. The outgoing Prime Minister I saw this morning walked past me at 6PR. No selfies, didn't do what Mouse would do and just got the selfie, which he sent to me. And but Albo's been in town, and he did point out somewhere that he barracks for the Hawks, but he said the Dockers and the Rabbitohs are the only two clubs in Australia that are based on some historical, being the Dockers, the Wharfies, and the Rabbitohs, something to do
about unions or something, no?
Skinning rabbits or some bullshit. Anyway, that's what he brought Albo to town, and he was drinking red wine in the box yesterday, and he was one of 55,000 plus at the Derby, Scully.
I saw him come out, so I was down on the boundary with Fox Footy. He walked, there was this big conglomerate
entourage.
Oh, mate, and they come on. He literally walked along. Someone had a baby. I swear to God, that it was planted. Because I go up and down the where the bar is, where people can drink, they're on ground level. So I go up in there and cop abuse. I copped a bit of abuse, actually. I've got lots of stories today. All right, so first of all, I walk up and down there all the time, cop the abuse, blah, blah.
Why do you walk up and down to get attention or not?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's it, Skater. Yeah, that's exactly right, mate. I go up and down. I get the red carpet out, guys. Here I am. Hello. No, you fuckwit. I go to interview Adam Simpson at the other end. So, mate, they're bars. There's no babies in there. Anyway, next minute, Elbo's walking around, and a baby gets handed.
Emerges.
Mate, I swear.
From the birthing suite.
Mate, and he's getting photos with the baby. Like, could you get more stereotypical? Anyway, they walk out. So this is one story. They walk out, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Fifey, the king, comes out. Fifey strolls out. He's in tracky pants, by the way. I would have not maybe put a suit on if I was going to meet the Prime Minister. Not Fifey. Comes in, shakes hand of his entourage, shake. Big slap up with Gil McLaughlin. Big bro slap and a shoulder pump with Gil. Jeez, it was funny. There's some good memes of Barack Obama going around there shaking the hands of basketballers. Yeah. Shake hand. Well, my brother, it was exactly like that. It was classic. Anyway, yeah, I copped some actual abuse down there.
What was it based around?
They didn't think I could hear him, and someone out of the corner of their mouth goes, "You need a fucking haircut, Schofield." And I turned around and pissed myself. And they were so shocked I'd heard it, they went all into their shell. Anyway, I walked back. Not to blow up. I couldn't
have a laugh.
Yeah, and I was like, what's going on? What's going on, boys? You having the beers? And then they're like, I'm so sorry, mate. Didn't mean to offend you. I'm like, boys, trust me. Telling me to get a haircut, you need to offend me a little bit more than that. So, yeah, that's right, Skater. I walk up and down there for attention, but I thought there was a couple of observations from the weekend. It was a bloody good derby. I mean, let's get into it. Shelter FootyCast brought to you by Shelter, born and brewed in Busselton. It's derby week, big week. It was a good game.
Yeah, for 3 quarters, and then the obvious happens when you're down on numbers. And I thought, I reckon for the first time in more than 12 months, obviously beating the Giants last week, I think for the first time in 12 months, even with a couple of wins last year, I thought Eagle supporters will walk away really proud of what their team showed under adversity, which they didn't last year at various stages. Take nothing away from Fremantle. They had to win it. They did win it. They kicked away in the last quarter. More relief at the Dockers than there is than celebrations, because I mean, I know you said on Thursday they'd pump them in terms of they'd come out and put a margin between. They did in the end, but I still think they are a long way from their finished product, and I think they know that.
Yeah, I had West Coast in front in 2 quarters, like two of the 4. I think they probably just they outscored him in the first. I was giving votes for the Roscoe Denning Allen medal, but we'll touch on that a little bit. But I just felt like West Coast had the edge that first quarter, and coming into that second, I think they started the second quite well. Luke Shuey does his hamstring, and it was pretty much a downhill stretch from there. But they clearly won the third. Like, they were all over Fremantle, all over them, and they outscored them by a long way. Look, I do also think that injuries are part of footy, but clearly that
this is over and above.
Yeah, it is over and above. But I think, like most people, you see the coaches roll it out. You don't like to make excuses. I mean, if you get injuries, yes, that's a reason you lose, but you win or you lose, and Freo were good enough to win, and they ended up smashing West Coast. And so for whatever reason, it doesn't really matter if it's poor play or it's injuries or whatever it is, they win by 41 points. So it's a big win in the end.
It is, exactly. Again, I'm not putting that much on the numbers in terms of the margin. I thought their midfield looked better. And again, because there wasn't they were able to get the transition going a bit better. I think that ball movement was improved. I thought Fremantle played a better brand, and conversely, maybe Fremantle were allowed to do that by West Coast not being as suffocating as some other sides they've played so far this year.
Very good. We'll get into the derby in a little bit. I thought a couple of other big moments of the round to touch on. Geelong goes 0-3. We spoke about a few sides were on the cusp. So the Western Bulldogs were on the cusp of 0-3. There were a couple other sides, but
actually
Fremantle, correct. Sorry, Fremantle and Geelong were the big three, and I felt like one of them was going to lose, right? And probably didn't think it was going to be Geelong.
And as it turns out, they go 0-3, the first reigning premiers since 1976 to go 0-3, and that was North Melbourne, who, by the way, 0-3 in 76, they ended up making the grand final that year against Hawthorn. But it shows you how rare it is and how difficult it is, and the national competition and how even the comp is means that it's going to be really tough for Geelong. To make the 8 is going to be a challenge. Doesn't matter what you say now. 0-3 means you've got some work to do. To finish top 4's almost...
It's very unlikely.
Very unlikely. And to go back-to-back as you were confident, as many were, as a pre-season... Don't worry, I've picked Brisbane in the flag, and they have just let me down regularly. So it's an open...
Are Geelong cooked? I mean, keep it on Geelong. Geelong, yeah. Do they look...
Yes.
They don't look good.
They scored 1 point, just 1 point from stoppages yesterday.
Really?
That is their lowest in their history. So there's a massive, there's talk of Dangerfield's leadership not nowhere near as inspirational as Selwood.
Unfortunately, I'll put that to bed right now. As much as people like to hate on Paddy Dangerfield, unfortunately, the leadership of your skipper, that doesn't result in 1 point from stoppage. I'm sorry.
No.
Maybe Joel Selwood can, set a few things up, and maybe he's a difference between a goal here and there. But on the field, it's up to the 18. That's the good players. It's a team thing. It's not about Joel Selwood or Trent Cotchin at Richmond. Like he didn't win those games.
I think what the point was when there was a moment, or you could tell that there was vulnerability amongst the game.
That's once a game. It's nothing to do. I'm just telling you right now, it's nothing to do with the captain. Like genuinely, nothing. Max Gawn didn't win the premiership for Melbourne. He might have because of the way he played. But it's nothing to do with Dangerfield and Selwood, unfortunately.
Anyway, the dynasty which they're talking about is going to be, in my opinion,
is
1 year.
Over?
Well, mate, it was 1 year. They aren't a dynasty. They've won one flag. They've been a great club for the whole of a century in terms of competitive, but it's not a dynasty. I mean, Richmond was a dynasty or a dynasty. Hawthorn, a dynasty. Brisbane, exactly. Geelong been super, but they only got one flag out of this current group.
So no more.
I don't think so. They're 3 rounds in, but I just don't think.
It's not looking good. I agree.
They're a long way.
I agree. I won't leave you out by yourself. I agree with you. They're not looking good. But I did pick them for the premiership. So go Geelong. Umpire dissent. Look, I watched this one. I can start on this one. This is GWS Carlton. There was 10 minutes to go. GWS at this stage were all over Carlton. Carlton had sort of fought their way back into the game a little bit. GWS had a bigger lead, but 10 minutes to go. Carlton, there was a tackle
on Harry Mackay.
Yeah, GWS, Sam Taylor, Harry Mackay. It was holding the ball. The decision was missed, right? Which happens all the time in footy.
Yeah, I mean, play-ons are cool. That being said, you're right. The decision was probably wrong.
That happens all the time.
Exactly.
Play on. They have a snap-on goal and they miss, right? And so as the ball goes through for a behind, sort of thank God that didn't go through. Both Lockie Whitfield and Stephen Cornelio, who are 2 leaders at GWS, both put their hands out at the same time. Why wasn't that a free kick? Now, I'm sure there was some expletives with it. I almost guarantee there was, right? So
the umpire, just to clarify, the umpire audio didn't suggest that there was. It wasn't what he said. He didn't say, look, the abusive language. So
so it's the arms out.
Exactly.
Right. Well, I still would like to add that even if there was an F or an S or as long as it wasn't a personal attack on the umpire, I think at the top level, I think we need to be old enough to perhaps be able to take that. And then if it's really offended you or hurt you, you can have a conversation with players. I think you can go and talk to them.
Well, relationships, and unfortunately, we go back and without trying to go 30, 40 years back, but umpires and players had those types of relationships. Mind you, they weren't mic'd back then, and there was a bit more banter. And I was speaking to Demo Getz about this yesterday, and I think he was uncomfortable with the decision being made like it is. Now, having said that, as a devil's advocate here, Scully, if Stephen had been told once or twice prior to that,
and he was arguing,
stop yapping away, otherwise and he's done this a third time or a second time, then no problems. But if this was out of the blue and there's a bit of frustration, he says that, you go back and say, mate, do it again, you're done. Or,
dissent rules, as well as scrapping the bounce in the waffle and the sample, these are all in there to encourage junior umpires to umpire at lower levels. And I do understand why these rules are here. But for mine, it's not a black and white rule, especially at AFL level. I can understand at junior and state leagues, it's black and white. You put your arms out, bad luck. But at AFL, the money that's on the line, the fan bases that are following these games, the stakes they're a lot bigger than state level footy. They're a lot bigger than junior footy. They're a lot bigger than amateur footy.
Yeah, so to compare it to, I agree with you totally. To compare it to junior football, and I understand the image that we don't want to give from our elite players, but
you cannot have that situation that happens. So we haven't finished the story. Carlton kicked the point, and arms go out, free kick given, top of the square, guaranteed
Jesse
goal,
Whitelock,
and it
bang.
completely changed the game. 10 minutes to go, GWS lose. Who knows what happens in that game? Maybe Carlton win anyway.
But they hadn't scored a goal, I don't think, since the second quarter. It had been a long drought for them, so it was just a defining moment in that match. You're right, Carlton may well have won the game anyway, but
devil's advocate, AFL's come out and said it's a complete correct decision.
Well, that's no surprise.
Well, so what I mean...
Well, by the letter of the law, it probably is the correct decision. But that's
that's the argument, isn't it?
Well, of course it's the argument.
No, as in, surely we can show common sense at top level if it's throwing an arm out or... I
saw it yesterday. We saw another...
You're talking with your arms out right now.
Yeah, and I got Carl said dissent yesterday for me because there was one player on the outer side, put his arms out asking for a free kick, didn't happen. Well, that's a free kick. Players have been... Remember Wilkie in round 1 against Fremantle looked at the school, pointing to the scoreboard. He got 50-metre penalty for that. So
we've gone too far with it, unfortunately, and it's at risk of really damaging the game.
Did you ever... I'm going to say abused. Did you ever...
What about Dave Marget's on?
Yeah, but have you ever... when I say abused an umpire, did you ever say that's a F decision or to an umpire?
Yeah, I probably did, yep. Yeah. I'm not going to lie.
Did you ever get pinged for it?
I felt like... even if it was heat of the moment and I dropped a swear word in there, I felt like I was never demonstrative to the point where I would have back and forths with the umpire a bit. Like, I was probably both ways. I would, if in a heat of the moment, full back, that sort of stuff that happens. But if it was really something bad happened, I reckon I would have. But on the other flip side, I would always talk to the umpires in a really positive way.
Would you ever apologise? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I mean. Apologise or have discussions, and especially when they're at the footy club. Like, I used to be really personal with them. But when you get out in that field, I think the good umpires understand that the ones that ever there was a reaction, they're not the good umpires. So I don't know how that can be educated through umpiring ranks, but it also needs to be educated to players that you can't abuse umpires. I think we know that. And so me saying that I used to do that, well, that feels a bit bad admitting, but I did.
Yeah, and look, we got to be honest, footy's not at the lowest level compared to other sports like soccer at times with treatment of officials. Rugby union, I think, is the code that we think is probably held the highest regard, referees with the way they... Not so much yes, so no, so, but you don't see too much demonstrative behaviour.
To wrap it up, that decision that was made on the weekend, we can't have games being decided by that because there's too much on the line. I'm sorry, but so the AFL can say what they like, but we can't have that. So I don't know how it gets fixed, though, because it doesn't sound like it's going to get fixed.
Well, the problem is, Scully, just quickly, is that was seen there, and we've seen other instances over the course of the weekend where players, it's a natural reaction. I do it now. I do it at home. We all do it when we don't understand a decision, to our wives, to our mates. I think you're right. Common sense just has to be applied.
All right, we'll see if that happens. Common sense, not so common sometimes. Mark Reddings, Will Schofield, Shelter FootyCast. Let's get into the derby a little bit more, Skeeto. We'll break it down as we do every game here on the Shelter FootyCast. Freo defeat West Coast by 41 points. It's a margin that was probably flattering of the game. I thought it was a really tight contest. I had West Coast for 2 quarters, Freo for 2 quarters. But in the end, the better team wins.
Yep.
The better team wins. And Let's go through the big moments. West Coast injuries, probably the top of them though. So a couple of minutes into the second, Luke Shuey does his hammy. I actually watched him come off. I don't know if you guys picked it up in the box.
Smashing the wall as well?
No. When he first came off, I was watching him really closely, and I mentioned the producer on. I said, I reckon Shuey's done a hammy here. Because he came off and I just watched him the whole time. He didn't speak to anyone. None of the doctors knew, none of the physios knew, but he knew he'd done it. And he just stood there and he sort of sat there for about 2 minutes and didn't speak to anyone.
Did he go back on?
No.
But you
he was that cooked, but he was that angry. I think he was trying to gather
internalise
himself.
it.
And then he told the physios, and there was a whole bunch of thing. And I think it could have even told Elijah Hewitt first. And I think he said, "Go and warm up now, mate." And then physios. Then he saw the wall punch. So he will be devastated.
He's playing good footy. What did he last week? This week?
That's what he'll be devastated about. Like knowing Luke very well, one of my good mates. Like he's put as much work as anyone could ever put into their body over the last, it's particularly this preseason. You know, he's gone and bought himself an infrared sauna that sits at his house. He's got recovery things at his house. He's got everything he does at the football club is about getting his body right, and then to feel. Playing at that level when you're running around at that pace, you're not thinking about getting injured. You're playing on instinct. So to be playing so well, I was giving votes for the Ross Glendenning. I've said that 5 times now, but I was voting every quarter, so then I could look back and see who was. I had him 3 votes for that first quarter. He would be devastated.
Yeah, no question.
McGovern,
and I mentioned a couple of weeks ago. I'd seen him, been told that he was just a little bit sore at training. And he played against the Giants. Now, it might not be related, but he did a decent hammy by the looks of it.
Didn't look good.
He's looked high. I'm not saying tendon, but it looked like something that's going to keep him out for a fair while. By the way, also this morning, Campbell Chess is going for scans on his knee, I've been told.
Yeah.
Which means
he was in a knee brace after the game.
Which means, he's Gonski. Liam Ryan is, well, let's get to him last, but with a concussion, so he misses the mandatory.
Cripps broke
the ankle in hospital, which is ugly to watch, difficult to absorb. Liam Ryan, lucky not to do some serious damage with the way he fell. And have we quite worked out what his ailment is?
Yeah, so I spoke to Liam after the game. I went and made sure he was all right. And he said his head was fine. But he said he's got, in his voice, which I'm not going to do. But
no, he's very quietly spoken.
He's one of my good mates, and he said, I don't have enough meat on my bones. So I don't have enough meat on my bones. When I fell on the ground, I smashed my leg onto the ground. He said, I'm just bruised, my brother. I'm bruised up. So I think he'll be all right. They didn't quite know what was going on. He was limping.
He was coming back onto the ground. And he was. He looked. Of course, he had no choice.
He said he was okay.
He should have got a free kick as well, I reckon.
I actually have no inside knowledge of this, but do you remember Oscar Allen coming down on his knee in the far pocket?
Yeah, I do remember
that. I didn't see him after the game, but I heard Adam Simpson speaking about injuries, and he kept floating. There was a couple of people, so I think Chess is one of them. I wouldn't be surprised if Oscar Allen's hurt his knee there.
The way he. Yeah, he jarred it in the because he went into the turf, so that could be because he said there's a couple others that we don't know about.
So if you had to name West Coast best players, I think you'd be pretty close to their best 5 with Allen, Ryan, McGovern, Witherden. Shuey, Cripps would be like in terms of importance.
Yep,
those 5 players.
Yeah,
Tom Barras is there maybe.
It's a disaster.
Tim Kelly is there as well. So they're probably 7. So you've lost 5 of your most important players in about 2 quarters.
And that's why I think in part Adam Simpson, so proud of what he saw in the third quarter. He had a smile on his face, maybe a rueful smile as he went about his work at 3/4 time. And
depending on what those injuries are, that's season done pretty much.
I think even with those players, it's going to be tough to make a case for the Eagles to have a huge year or have a decent year, but this makes it, and with the run to come, I think there's Melbourne, there's Geelong, thankfully in Adelaide, not in Geelong. They've got Carlton and Richmond and Port Adelaide in the mix, so it's going to be...
They're going to have to dig deep internally, not only just players, but mentally, I think, with some of those players that are missing. But 56,000 at Optus Stadium, so it was a sellout, effectively.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it was a good crowd, it was a loud crowd.
Good game.
Yeah, Oscar Allen was big early, took some big marks, but Freo kept answering as well. So even though they weren't dominating, Caleb Sarong was really big in that first quarter with clearance work around the stoppage. He ends up winning the Glendenning Allen medal. 35 disposals, 8 clearances, 12 inside 50s, and a lot of those inside 50s connected as well, which they've been missing. Like they've been missing those. Walters kicks 4. He was very good. Frederick was good with 2 and a backflip.
Justin Longmuir said I wouldn't have done it, but he's happy to keep that in the game, which is a trivia. I mean, I'm waiting for Karen Wilson to come out or someone to whack him for doing that, but let's be honest, he's a young man.
I bloody hope not.
Oh, we've got to embrace it. We have to embrace that sort of stuff. I mean, it was...
Luke Jackson on the back page of the paper. Will he be on the back page of the paper? I haven't seen the paper today. But
no, he's not.
They should have put him on. That would have been funny by the West. Action Jackson.
Couple of goals. It wasn't a huge game, I didn't think, from him, but it was... we started to see some signs, getting his hands on the foot. He's still, I think, a little bit clunky at times, but the roar from the crowd when he kicks their first goal of the afternoon was terrific for him. And I don't know whether he's
they want him around the footy, right? Like yeah. I don't like him as a midfielder. I didn't like the chat pre-season, and I don't like him. So the first centre bounce, he starts in the midfield on Luke Shuey. Luke Shuey got the clearance to live inside 50 goal. So. I don't think he's that guy.
No, I mean, Anthony Koutafidis was a big guy who sort of could go
They put Nick Natanui in there with Cox as well. They used to do that, but I don't think Jackson's that sort of guy, just personally. If you're going to get him around the ball, put him on the wing or something maybe. I don't know. You get a real mismatch out on a wing.
Yeah.
I
think you're right. To try and ask him to match some of the mids that go around in the AFL on a regular basis is a big ask.
Yeah. Matty Johnson played his first game, of course, did some good things. So he set up a couple of goals. David Mundy during the week said he was a better version of him.
That's a bloody good version.
Yeah. So I said, he's 375 games to go, I suppose. What were your overall thoughts on it?
No,
finish up.
Decent result. And I've got to say, at 3/4 time, we said this could be one of the Eagles' most famous victories if they get up, because they had a bit of a feel about the way they were going about it. But at the end of the day, probably for WA footy, more important than Fremantle won, just from us, and we're talking selfishly as broadcasters, that we go to the footy now, Fremantle, more likely the two to try and play finals, they had the result. So not a huge performance from Fremantle in terms of their finished product.
Did I get the votes right?
I think so. Look, I tipped Darcy along with Jacko pre-game, and with you, I think I said Darcy. I made a strong case. Still had 52 hit-outs, kicked a goal, and I thought he was right in the conversation, but I think Sarong deservedly got it.
I gave Switkowski one vote.
Switkowski, very much a factor in the midfield and obviously pushing forward.
I thought his influence, what he did. He had 20 touches, kicked 2. I think that's a good game. But what he provided for her was different than everyone else.
Yeah, and there was talk of Tim Kelly should have been in discussion, but his efficiency by foot was 51%. So
he wasn't in the best 5 players.
That to me means he's not in the conversation. And also, the team lost by 40 points. I think you're entitled to, in that situation, given the 3 players at least we've spoken about, to give Caleb Sarong the 3. And
I was just hoping I didn't fuck it up.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. And I made the call to you to see if you could do it. And there's a pressure with it, because particularly in a game that wasn't like someone with a 7-goal haul or 40 touches.
Yeah, well, to start that last quarter, I still was considering West Coast players within, Ruben Jinby, a nice game for
he might end up with a NAB Rising Star, Star this week.
I hope so. He had 6 clearances, 20 tackles. It was very good, and he's going to have to be good for the rest of the year. He's going to play the midfield for a long time now, so that'll be good for West Coast fans. That's the Derby wrapped up, done and dusted until we see that next time around. Let's get into the rest of the round. The Shoulder FootyCast, Mark Reddings, Will Schofield. All right. Who did you tip? You tipped the Freo Dockers, didn't you? Freo.
I did tip
All right,
Freo.
so 1 from 1. Very good. Western Bulldogs defeat Brisbane by 14.
Well, go on.
Skeeter. Why would you pick him, mate?
Why Brisbane?
They can't blow away from home, mate. No. So just know that. Just pick him at the Gabba.
I've learnt that. Yeah, but they're playing Collingwood this week. So what I do there, I'm going to have to stay with Brisbane because they're doing my head in. They're doing my head in.
And I picked the Bulldogs.
You did pick the Bulldogs.
Stick it up, yeah. Absolutely stick it up, yeah.
You know what? Well, I'll stick it up you, because guess what? During the game, I saw how pitiful Brisbane were, and I backed Bulldogs at -1.5, and they won. by 14. So I got you tip for show, you punt for dough.
Very good. Well done, Skeeter. The Bulldogs, big upset win in the end. Jamari Ugle-Hagan was terrific.
Made a statement.
5 goals. Paid tribute to Nicky Wimar with the pointing at the chest. Was extremely emotional during the game, after the game. But I just thought he spoke so well. I've heard what he had to say after the game, both on the field with Daisy Thomas and then off the ground and in the press conference. Like, he's a 20, 21 year, like he's 20. He's a kid, mate. And the way he spoke about what being Indigenous means to him, his culture, what footy means to him. Like, I couldn't have loved it anymore. And he kicked 5 as well.
Yeah, and look, you said to me, I think yesterday or whatever, you knew, even though it was a tight game, you sort of knew that the Bulldogs were going to win that game from, I reckon, the first five or so, 10 minutes. You thought, no, this game's on their terms. They're playing as they want to. And credit to them, Bevo's got them out of a real hole there. 0-2 to 0-3 would have been disastrous. From a Brisbane perspective, and I know, look, they're a quality side, we think, but the frustration levels that Joe Danaher provides, Eric Hipwood, that duo, it's just hard to see them playing consistently well enough to provide that team with a premiership. For just what we're seeing over not just this year, but previously, there's too many variables with them.
Removing a McStay, I know he probably goes to a better deal at Collingwood, and that's contract talk sometimes out of their hands. But I mean, for the Lions to not cough up the dough for McStay, and they've coughed it up for Hipwood by the sounds of things, he's got a long-term deal. I think that's an interesting decision. Yeah. Look, Hipwood might do flashier things every now and then, but McStay, you know what you're going to get. He's going to crash some packs. He's reliable. He plays every game. He doesn't get injured. I think they've moved for. I think potentially they've gone chips in and gone. Potentially we could be better rather than just we're pretty good right now. Like, they've been a very, very good side for the last 3 or 4 years. Just get a little bit better, but I think they've tried to fill some gaps and get too creative or something.
Let me just quickly tap into what I said. The flat track Brisbane Bullies is they've played really well up against Melbourne at the Gabba, poor against Port, ordinary against the Bulldogs. The Eagles, even in 2018, you won quite a few away games from memory. But is that a sign if you're struggling away from home can you identify why teams do that? Like Brisbane, quality side. You know they're a good side, but they just...
Well, it has to be mental, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the mental ability to perform outside your comfort zone. You're not driving to the game. You've got a bus to the game. You're not sleeping in your own bed. You're not cooking your own food. You're not around your family, your friends. It's all different, right? So the good teams adapt and they play well and they find a way to win, and Brisbane aren't doing that right now, so it makes them not a good team. It's pretty much as simple as that, right?
Yeah, well, they get stuff.
Don't pick him, Skeeter. Don't pick him. Rory Lobb got subbed out. He's been disappointing to start his career at the Bulldogs, so I don't think that's an understatement. Collingwood defeat Richmond by 14 points. This was a good game. Probably a bit closer than... Collingwood was a better side here.
Yeah, inaccuracy certainly cost Collingwood.
They almost doubled their scoring shots.
Yeah, it was a low-scoring scrap, just the way Richmond would have liked with a bit of rain. It was more suited to their style of footy. And I thought, given the numbers they had out, the Tigers were pretty competitive, to be honest with you.
Nick Dacos has another 30-plus disposal game, his third in a row this season. I think it's a cop-out to say you can't tag him. I think teams aren't tagging him. They're trying to... So the argument goes with it, right? All right, you can't tag him if he starts at half-back and then goes to the wing and goes inside and then goes forward. You can. You just need to sacrifice someone going with him. And I think no one's paying him enough respect.
I guess the question is, who's the player?
Oh, mate, he's not the world's greatest athlete.
No, of course.
He's not Peter Bowl running around out there. He's just like everyone else, but no one's respecting him. No one's giving him enough respect. Seriously.
Respect.
You can tag players like that out of the game very easily. Put someone on him and you sacrifice team defense. You sacrifice the ability once the ball goes your way to sort of attack. You're playing with 17 men effectively. But you know what, Skate? So are they, because you take him out of the game. He's too dangerous. He's too damaging, too dangerous with what he does with the footy. I'm just shocked. Why are we not tagging players anymore?
You're saying it's easier said than done, surely. Otherwise, if that...
Mate, the teams are too arrogant. They don't want to tag. I'm telling you. I don't understand why.
So, okay, who would you use, say, at Fremantle and West Coast to tag Nick Dacos? Give me the two players.
You can bring Jai Cully in if you like and just put him on him. At West Coast? Did you say West Coast?
Yeah, either
was
or.
I listening?
Yeah, no, either at Fremantle.
Aish. Put Aish on him. I mean, Ace try to do a job on Tim Kelly at stoppage. Clubs, I'm telling you, Cubs go, okay, we want the cooler.
The cooler.
Right? We're going to put Ace on Tim Kelly at stoppage, and we're going to stop him from getting the clearances, but around the ground, he can run around and do whatever he likes. They're doing the same with Nick Dacos. When he runs around and does what he likes, he sets up about 6 goals for Collingwood. Just tag him. It's not that hard. Just tag him.
And so this week, we'll talk about later, but whether it's a Starcevic or someone who's got that.
Tag him.
Okay.
Tag him. He will win the Brownlow. Tag him. I don't know why clubs don't want to tag. It's ridiculous. I've played with lots of taggers. They're the most important players in the team. Did a lot of shows with Ryan Crowley last year.
Cameron Ling, outstanding.
I mean, these are like, and Richmond never used to do it with their team because they're like a whole team of taggers, just like all these guys running around. But there's been plenty of good taggers. You can tag him. People just don't want to, and I'm a little bit sick of it. You can hear me. That was Damien Hardwick's 300th game as Tigers coach. Does that surprise you?
300. That's a lot of footy. Love the way Collingwood's playing. It's only round 3. They're probably premiership favourites as we speak. But
John DeGoey, I reckon's up there in the Brownlow medal. 35 touches, 10 clearances.
He just looks like a bloke that's enjoying his footy. Craig McRae flies. He's known.
Collingwood have got some issues. Big issues.
Such as?
They don't have a ruck.
Darcy, obviously, Cameron going down. That's
Grundy's gone. Darcy Cameron, his day's MCL. That'll be 8 weeks. Mason Cox is injured.
Yep.
They got a young ruckman that they recruited. Test me out. I think Aiden, someone maybe injured. They literally will be playing
McStay.
They will have to play McStay, Billy Frampton, who's
played brilliantly on the weekend against
I don't
Lynch.
think they're going to put him into the ruck. Oh mate, they don't have a ruckman, so that's a big issue
For the time being.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out on Thursday night, I suppose.
Thank you, Skater. Who'd you pick?
I tipped Collingwood in that one, and I think the better team won. A bit like we saw with the Derby, but the injuries for Richmond, I think certainly aided. But Collingwood deserved to get the points.
Hawthorn defeat North Melbourne by 19 points. North Melbourne are tanking. I'm going to come out and say it here on the Shelter FootyCast.
North
Melbourne are tanking. They've lost to Hawthorn. Well, I mean, everyone said Hawthorn's tanking. So if they can't beat...
being a smart ass, okay.
If Hawthorn beat North Melbourne, then North Melbourne are tanking.
Can I say there's...
seriously, how dumb do you have to be?
A couple of caveats with that defeat. As I'm sitting down to watch the footy, I'm thinking, where's Davies Uniacke? Where is he? Well, he was a late withdrawal with a tight calf.
Captain of my dream team.
So he goes, Simpkins out. Hawthorn and Launceston hard to beat, and so Clarko lowers his colours to Sam Mitchell, and Hawthorn were admirable against.
It doesn't sound like you're too impressed, but Sam Mitchell outcoached Alistair Clarkson, which is a big one. So Mitchell, our first 2 rounds, it was run and gun and take the game through the middle like a Collingwood, right? And they got spanked doing it by Sydney, but by Essendon, maybe they're a good side. This week, he chipped his way through.
Measured ball movement, was it? Yeah.
So they had 100 more uncontested possessions and about 60 more uncontested marks. They chip. Always lowered their eyes and then went inside 50 and he outcoached them.
Yeah, well, North Melbourne, I was watching the game, North Melbourne looked to block the corridor. So Hawthorn was like, okay, well, I'll take what's on offer, which was a player free, 20. I kept looking at the two. Where is this pressure coming from North? It didn't. And then, as you say, they get to a kick and a half out. That's when they would try and evaluate and then hit their target. So you're right. They played it really well. Hawthorn, deserved winners. North Melbourne, I think, they want their 2-star midfielders back, but they weren't disgraced. But they had a down day, and no surprise. I mean, for North to win 3 in a row, not too many people would have forecast that at the start of the year.
Does that remind you of someone playing the chip, like smart player? I mean, that's Sam Mitchell, right? Like
that's those little dinky kicks, yeah.
So it was 140 to 89 marks. It was 423 to 342 disposals, 80 more uncontested possessions. Like they outplayed them and did them well. Brockman from Hawthorn, he's a great story. He missed a lot of footy, came back in. They've got really high hopes for him, being a good footy player. He kicks 3 goals. Dylan Moore's having a really big season again. He was great last year. He kicked 2 goals as well. So it'll be interesting to see how both bounce back next week. Carlton defeat GWS by 10. We spoke about this a little bit. Look, this was GWS's game for a long part of the game, and thank you very much, Umpire. But Carlton get another win. They go 3. So they go 2.5.
2.5, yeah. Unbeaten, that's what they are. And Paddy Cripps, I think, from memory on the weekend, his highest ever disposal count of 42.
That's correct.
42. That was like he did his best to get him across the line, which he did. We talked about the controversy late in the game. Giants were super competitive, but I think what we saw is Carlton, with the ability to guts it out and win that game. You know, you look back and go, oh yeah, they won by a couple of kicks, and
they've done it twice now, haven't they? Like as in Geelong.
Yeah, important. As you know, I remember you beat Carlton at the MCG in your premiership year, and it wasn't a great performance per se, but you banked the win, you interstate, you get it done, and there won't be too many plaudits for the way they played on the weekend because it was inaccuracy.
No, but how Monday's meeting works for Carlton though, they review it maybe for a really short period of time. They take a couple of learnings and they just move on. Like to win it, you're just happy with that.
Absolutely.
See you later. So
that's the difference between finishing, argument's sake.
Yeah, top four. Yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah, so they get that win done. I mean, they look impressive. We've got to be honest. They look impressive. They've got a lot of the key things that you need to win a flag. They've got key forwards that are performing.
So I tend to disagree with Mackay and Curnow. Great potential, but I tell you what, they might well get them to a final.
That's a good point.
But my issue is
they look unreliable in front of goals, don't they?
That's exactly my point. Yeah.
It's strange. They spend a lot of time together, obviously, because they do the same things. They start
Harry Mackay. I haven't seen Harry Mackay take a set shot, or maybe he did from outside 50 on the weekend. But yeah,
he's not like a Papley or like these guys that do them, like a Stevie Johnson, just to use as best of all time. That you're just like, well, he's going to snap it, but he's going to kick it. Harry Mackay starts snapping it, and you're like, this could go anywhere.
Speaking of which, same game, Jesse Hogan from 30 metres out snapped, didn't make the distance. I mean,
you can see why goal kicking is a mentality thing, right? It's not a technique thing. I know you'll just say, we'll just kick it, drop. No, I know, but the reason they're not doing that is because they mentally can't. It's confidence. Yeah, no, it's just strange. Jesse Hogan, we saw him in Perth, and he did the same. He missed a couple here, then went around his body, but he's 30 metres out. He's kicked goals throughout his career. So, yeah, I find that strange. And Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow as well. That is, through the course of the weekend, Sco, I'm not sure the percentages, but the numbers suggest that the goal kicking hasn't really improved over time. 70 years. St Kilda defeat Essendon. Oh, who'd you pick in that game?
Essendon. Seriously.
No, Carlton.
I tipped Carlton, yes.
Yeah. And you picked North Melbourne, didn't you?
I picked North Melbourne.
I did as well. St Kilda defeat Essendon by 18.
I tipped Essendon. They were gone 20 minutes in. Seriously. And Ross Lyon, I'm telling you now, he could coach an Auskick team to win an AFL game at the moment. Is he the best coach in the league at the moment? Well, if you were picking the coach of the month, absolutely, by panels. Mate, he might almost be laughing, I reckon, because he doesn't have a team at the moment. They've still got all those injuries they started the year with. He's changed some things. I was sort of trying to look at what he's changed, because St Kilda for a long time, like they haven't been doing this. They haven't been playing like this. So what's he doing? So clearly they have defence first mindset. Now, I would think coaches that have coached them in the past have tried to get them to defend, but Ross Lyon clearly has a way of getting people to buy in. And if you don't do it, you're out. And if you do it, you get rewarded. And that's like, it's pretty simple. It sounds simple at least. I really love what they're doing with Mason Wood. He's had a really best. It's only 3 games. He looks like he's a new player. Well, he had 27 touches, 11 marks, and a goal on the weekend. He had 30 start the year. He's this hybrid mid-wing forward that's just getting around the ground and getting his hands on it. I said this before the game on 6PR. 3 players that I played on some of the greats of all time, right? Buddy Franklin and Matty Lloyd I've played on, and all those guys that are up there with great players. But 3 players I used to have trouble with: Jared Waite, Josh Bruce, and Mason Wood. We had a game, Brad Shepherd and I distinctly remember sitting in the backline meeting room arguing over who was going to play on him, because he had this year at North Melbourne where he was frightening. He was quick. He could jump, he could kick, he could do everything. He was this powerhouse. He was endurance, and then they stopped playing him, and he was. I used to text Shep, and when he was still on the list, and I was like, Mason Wood not playing, like give him a thumbs up. You know what I mean? They just mentality. I don't know. I read a piece in the Herald Sun recently about Mason and suggesting that he was on pretty good terms with himself. Said something at the Flemington races once about how good he was, or how good he was going to be. So whether he lost his way a bit, I don't know. He looks bloody good now. But he's in good nick. Saints are going rippingly well. Jack Steele not there. Of course, their 150th anniversary. I said it wouldn't matter, didn't I? I said it wouldn't matter one bit.
players won't care. Players would. Oh, did I say it to you? I
Yeah,
can't
you
remember
did. No, you did.
Well, I did. They cared.
Yeah, they care.
Clearly.
Yeah, well, they care. And you know what? The one bloke I did not recognise when they're doing the pre-match, I had to look twice and going, who is that bloke? Plugger.
Plugger,
Did you see the picture of the shot of Plugger? Who now, whatever diet he's gone on, and I'm assuming it's a diet. It's been quite a while.
I
now.
hope it is a diet.
Yeah, no, exactly. I don't think he's ill, but if a diet is such, and I think he's been really svelte for some time now. It's extraordinary amount of weight that he's lost since he's played.
There was all this controversy whether he was going or not. Did you see all that? He was like, is he going to go? Is he going to go? But it was good to see him down there.
Yeah, and the Saints, look, one flag during their 150 years has been a pretty tough road to hoe, and Ross Lyon's been there during their toughest moments in many ways. So, yeah, good. Look, they're top of the table thereabouts. Well done to them.
Yeah, very good. Langford kicked another goal. Higgins kicked 4. Butler 4. So they've got some key, nippy forwards.
They're smalls.
Just think about Ross Lyon, what he's done with successful sides. So that was St Kilda, and then Freo, and then now St Kilda again. It's built on defence. It's built on pressure forwards, right? He loves pressure forwards.
Yep.
And then just role players in the middle. Like they lose Jack Steele, but someone just steps in and plays his role. And that's that. Yeah.
The difference is, though, Scully, in brief, is that going back to St Kilda and Fremantle, he had some absolute A-listers, and he might still have them here at some stage, but, Revolt, Pavlich, I mean, you go through in Fife, you think of who he had at his disposal. At the moment, mate, they're bereft. They shouldn't be winning the matches.
They're not going 10-0, though, to start.
No, they're not. But by the same token, they're probably on track to win 10 for the year now.
Yep.
And dare I say it, they could play finals, which would be, I think, a huge tick for him.
Be a shock for most as well. Adelaide defeat Port Adelaide by 31 points. We would have both picked Port Adelaide, I'm assuming. What's going on with them?
Well, I didn't see the game, but I know that there was... You're talking about you being a judge in the Glendenning Allen Medal, which was quite a seamless production, and I must admit I sort of made the phone calls to ask these various people to do it, including you. They used Kingy, who's in
There was
Melbourne.
5 voters.
There were 5, were there?
There was 5.
Gee,
There was 5 voters, and one of them wasn't at the ground.
Well, Kingy wasn't there, David King.
And everyone gave votes to all different people, and
it was a shit show by the sounds of it. Not a showdown.
Riley
Thilthorpe,
he kicked 5, got 1 vote out of 15. Rankin
was a gun. Again, I didn't see the game because I was working, but a bit of controversy over that. But that's a big win for Adelaide because Port, you would have.
They won by 31 points in the showdown.
Running away.
Yeah. Tom Dude, you know what I'm talking about. He tweeted, "Shit, I love beating that team." There's genuine
hatred,
venom.
yeah.
There's venom between these two sides, and there's not between Freo and West Coast. So I know we build it up a bit. It's not there. Adelaide and Port it is.
Oh, mate, there's a pre-game. Coaches are talking about we dislike them as a club. Well, it's just
That's good.
We love it. It's like if Port Adelaide's playing someone, this is the Crows. If Port Adelaide's playing someone, we're barracking for the other side. Like it's that personal, and I love it. And it's something that we lack here. And you and I were on air yesterday with Dale Alcock. We tried to get a bit of spice, but it'll be manufactured. Unless the only times, to be brutally honest, there have been those moments between the clubs has been at the start when West Coast belted Fremantle on the scoreboard and physically. The Demolition Derby, Andrew Brayshaw. That's when the real passion has come out. So, unfortunately, we can't match the showdown. And Port Adelaide, after blowing away Brisbane, have looked pretty average since then.
I'm coming to realise, so we both get that tip wrong. I got 5 for the week. You got 4.
Did I? That's generous.
I think I'm coming to realise that if you're going well in tipping this year, you'd have no idea about footy.
Well,
and you know how much you and I know about footy? About as much, because we pick Geelong to beat Gold Coast. On the Gold Coast.
Well, this is Muppet, who I work with, and you know Muppet. He said, I'm on top of the footy tipping. I said, how did you do that, mate? He said, I just tipped the home team. Oh, good. Just tipped the home team. So he tipped the Gold Coast yesterday, tipped Fremantle yesterday.
First time since 2017 the Gold Coast have beaten the Cats. We spoke about 1976, first reigning premiers to go 0-3. Lukosius kicks 5 goals, including a 65-metre long set shot. He just drilled it from out the back. Geelong on the bottom of the ladder. I mean, it's actually funny. Like, what's going on here? Geelong, no good.
Now, they were 5-4 last year. The Cats won 16 in a row. In their last 2 games of 2022, they kicked 38 goals. In the first 2 games this year, they've managed a total of 19.
Wow.
They have dried up significantly. Tom Hawkins, who, go back 3 months ago, he was supposed to miss...
Yeah, he's had the
start of the season.
Really patchy pre-season.
Has he been brought back too early? There's so many questions, and I did say this at the start of the season about the appetite to really... They'd worked so hard over such a long period of time to get to the zenith, the top of the mountain. I said, Scully, I just can't see they're going to have that, and other teams are going to try and pick them apart. That's about the only prediction I've got right pre-season, but they don't look like a side that has that at the moment. That will to go.
Okay, so what about the Gold Coast Suns? We completely wrote them off because we were like, well, Geelong's going to beat them. They're going to start 2-3, and we're going to get rid of them out of the AFL. They beat Geelong. Like, you can say what you like. Okay, Geelong's, a lesser form of what they have been, but Gold Coast still get the win. Like, it's a really big win for their footy club, and it could go either way for them here off the back of that, right?
It's massive. I think they've got the Saints away this week. I mean, a lot relies on Touk Miller and what he does midfield. Jared Witch has been terrific since going up there.
There is a heartbeat.
Yeah, Ben King back playing footy, kicked a goal yesterday. Lukosius 5. We want them to do well, and maybe that's the result. Put it this way, that's the result Stuart Dew desperately needed, because here's how I read the play. If he can't get them rolling this year, Port Adelaide hit the skids.
Yes.
I know he's re-signed a deal, etc., but Ken Hinkley, I think he's still a good coach. I wouldn't be surprised if Hinkley...
If Port can't... Yeah, if Port start the same way as last year, they have 1 win from 6 games.
He's in trouble.
In mid-season.
And Stuart Dew's got to, if not play finals, get them to 10 to 12 wins to be really knocking on the door.
Yeah, I agree. Melbourne defeat Sydney by 50 points. They came out of the blocks. It was like 38-1 in the first quarter. Absolutely spanked them. Thanks for putting it in the run sheet this week, Charlie. I appreciate that, so I didn't miss it. Were we surprised? Not really. Van Ruin.
3 goals, yep. West Aussie on debut, young kid from Claremont, exciting. So he played a lot of footy in the VFL, so he's had a year in the system. This is his second year at Melbourne. I haven't seen obviously much of him play for Casey, but he was terrific as a Colts play. He predominantly is a forward, but can go back, but he was spectacular. And given the fact that Ben Brown was subbed out of the game yesterday, it shows you that Van Rooyen has made an imprint, and he'll obviously... hopefully get a decent run at it.
So Lockie Hunter, I heard him speak on the Debrief podcast in Melbourne, which is a local fan podcast. They do some good work there. He got to the club this year from the Western Bulldogs and asked one of the coaches, who is this kid? Who is this? How many games has he played? Yeah. No games, never played. Why not? He's a superstar. And so he's clearly... impressed at VFL level, but just from the eye test, that's from a senior player from another club that's never seen him before. So I'd like to see him play more games. That's a great result. Buddy Franklin draws level with, is it Coventry or Coleman? That sounds terrible, but with the most games, kicking more than multiple goals.
Kicked 2, didn't he?
Kicked 2, so he draws level with the most of all time. It's like 576 games.
Yeah, now, didn't see the game because primarily we were working on ours, but I am sensing and reading that Sydney were very buddy-centric, as opposed to the week before they had McDonald, had a Marty, but they went back to their ways. You raised this point on the we want to see McDonald sort of be the focus. Yeah. Maybe you got to play Buddy higher, out not so deep, and play McDonald deeper. Yeah, Buddy's physically. I mean, maybe he's a.
Yeah, you said he was done mid.
No, I said he won't kick 50, but
that's right.
What they'll probably do is if he plays 12 to 14 games, that would be, I reckon, optimum. That's my guess.
Very good. Mark Reddings, Will Schofield, Channel FootyCast. So you got the 4 votes, I got the 5 for the weekend, Skeeter, so I absolutely dominated you. Bad luck, mate. Shelter XPA X Factor. Look, it's pretty obvious. I mean, we'd love to give it to Jacob Van Rooyen.
But the shipping costs,
correct.
It comes out of my
So we'll give him a pseudo slab. Well done, Jacob. He's the pseudo slab of Shelter XPAs. We're giving it to Caleb Sarong, Skater.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Young bloke who would get asked for ID if he went to a pub, but got the Glendinning Allen
Not
medal.
a problem that you or I have to put up with, unfortunately.
It's so embarrassing when everyone walks in. My wife sometimes gets asked for ID. And my daughters that do it, and they go, "Yeah, you're right, mate. You old bastard."
Yeah. You're more likely to get stopped and asked not to come in than asked for an ID.
Or kicked out for being an idiot. But I'm off the drink at the moment. Before I have a shelter in 40-odd days, I'm...
Doing well?
Yeah, I'm okay at the moment. Early days.
Caleb Sarong, Glendenning Allen medalist. He gets the slab of shelters. That's us, Skeeter, done and dusted. Shelter FootyCast. You know you're on the new feed. If your friends can't find us, tell them. Jump on the new feed. FootyCast at shelterbrewing.com.au as our email. Give us something to finish with, Skeeter. I don't know what you got for us.
No, nothing huge. Just to say that Thursday night, short week, of course. We've got Easter coming up. Gabba, footy.
Is there holidays at the end of this week?
Apparently for some people, yeah, it's Easter.
Do you get them off?
I'm working Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday morning. And then I might go and hold hands with my wife, have some breakfast, and reacquaint myself. So no, we are working. It's footy season. That's what we love. That's what we do, and we love talking about it.
We do it, love it, and then we rant about it right here on the show.